Rabbi, I'm Tzvi Goldberg, and it's my great pleasure on behalf of Star K to welcome you to the joint rabbinic webinar between Star K and the National Council of Young Israel. In conjunction with Rabbi Hammer's help, we are pleased to bring this webinar to you. We have three speakers tonight. We have Rav Heinemann Shlita, Rabbi Dovid Heber, and Rabbi Mordechai Frankel. We are going to begin with Rabbi Heber because Rabbi Heinemann is recorded, and we're going to show him last because of his schedule. We recorded him, and you'll see first Rabbi Heber speaking about medications, Rabbi Frankel speaking about kitniyot, including quinoa, and Rav Heinemann speaking about mechiras chametz shtaris. If you have any questions that aren't answered in this session, please feel free to email us at info@star-k.org. I want to mention that we have our Pesach information up on our website, star-k.org. You can get it a PDF, you can get an app for your phone. Of course, the old-fashioned way is also available. Going to your bookstore, and we have it out in the Svarim stores as well. I want to give a plug for our monthly webinar for some of your balabatim, perhaps. At the end of every month, the last Wednesday of the month, at 12 noon, at the same web address and the same telephone number that you dialed in, we have a monthly webinar on topics for consumers. They're archived on our YouTube channel, our Vimeo channel, and on kosherclasses.org. So we have that available for you or your balabatim. Rabbi Heber is our medication expert, among his other fantastic abilities. He's the Rav of Chashuva Shul in town, and we ask Rabbi Heber to speak about medications and vitamins for Pesach.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Goldberg, Yasher Koach, for setting this up, as well as all the other teleconferences and many of the various programs that go on in Star K for educational programs. Our grace Yasher Koach, and Yasher Koach to our technical support, Rabbi Eli Reidler and Debbie Rosenstein, Yasher Koach, and Yasher Koach to Rabbi Hammer. It's always great to work with Rabbi Hammer in Harbat Satar projects, and always appreciate the opportunity to speak to the Kosher of Young Israel Rabbanim. I'd like to speak about medications and the various halachas and some of the practical aspects regarding medicine. First, I want to touch on the halachas, which are really critical. Every Rav is going to be asked these shilas, and we'll talk about, of course, there are chalukah deis when it comes to medicines. A few years ago, there was a big tumult about different rabbanim saying different things and so on, and sometimes that leads to misconceptions. You may find someone saying, "Oh, they heard all medicine is mutter," which of course is not true. There are tzadim lahakal, as we'll talk about, and we'll go through those various tzadim, and we'll see what's also l'chal hadayis, what's mutter l'chal hadayis, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and we'll try to get through it as quickly as possible. Someone whose life is in danger, as is well known, is allowed to certainly take chametz. They're allowed to be mechal Shabbos, as is known. We have those shilas as rabbanim, whether it's chametz on Pesach, probably more often Yom Kippur, someone has to eat. That would include, of course, obviously, if someone is experiencing a sakana now on the spot, that's pashut, that one is allowed to take chametz. But really, that category really is extended to a little bit more than one might think. Obviously, a heart condition, diabetes, an elevated blood pressure, a stroke, lung disease, kidney disease, depression, epilepsy, immune system medications. Someone, let's say, had a transplant and they're on certain drugs for their immune system, or le'aleinu, cancer. Those obviously are examples of a chel sheish b'sakana, and certainly you could give anything if something is not readily available. That's good. Then certainly you can give that. But it also includes, let's say, somebody who's elderly that has a flu, or somebody even elderly that, if you start changing things, it could be bali de sakana. And it's interesting, in Pesach, the definition of sakana may be different than Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, if somebody has a flu, and they can't drink a whole Yom Kippur, we would categorize them as a chayil sheish b'sakana. We would tell them to drink. We might see if shiurim, less than a shiur, is going to work. By Pesach, that same Yom Kippur sakana might not have the same status of sakana when it comes to medicine, because there may be an eitzah that a medicine which is readily available as not chametz would not be a problem, or maybe even under certain conditions, do they really need that medicine? Again, so that obviously depending on the situation they're in, but clearly anything which is a sakana, a clear-cut sakana situation, you could give anything which is necessary. All I'm saying is that something defined as a sakana Yom Kippur might not be defined when it comes to what medicine they're taking and the necessity thereof. Again, that needs to be discussed with a doctor. But more than that, where we're makel is that if somebody has a chronic problem, and this sometimes is overlooked, and someone actually was mirroring this to us a number of years ago when we were preparing the guide. Somebody has a chronic problem, and by playing with the medicine, it may lead to problems from that situation. Let's give some examples. Crohn's disease, or colitis, or Parkinson's disease, or MS, or a thyroid problem, or an asthma problem, or maybe even cholesterol problem. Those in and of themselves might not necessarily be a sakana, but if a person, let's say, has a certain regimen of medication, and this works for them, and sometimes some of these illnesses takes time to get the right balance, a little of this, a little more of that, and finally you have it, it's on course, and everything's going fine, and all of a sudden now you don't find a medicine in the book, and now you're going to come and say, well, stop taking it. That's going to, overturn the whole situation, and that could lead to various problems down the road. So one has to be, as a Rav, extra cautious that if it's a certain type of medication that's necessary and is working, then these could be defined as sakana, because again, the definition of sakana is not right now the remarkable sakana. Obviously, a heart attack, anybody knows, is going to be a sakana right here, right now. But even something that over time, because of let's say certain things you're going to do now is going to cause problems down the road, then one could be makel. So again, here one should be extra careful. Now, a chayil she'ein b'sakana is someone whose life is not in danger, and examples of that would be a flu, arthritis, a migraine headache, maybe mild depression, a lower back pain, someone who's pregnant without any complications, a woman who's had a baby within the past month, actually within the past week, we would say it's yesh b'sakana for purposes of these halachas, and then from 7 days to 30 days there would be a chayil she'ein b'sakana, and after that you would have to determine what their particular situation is. A chayil she'ein b'sakana, again, we would say try to use something which is not chametz, which appears on the list. And by the way, here's a copy of our Pesach guide, the 2014 expanded Passover directory. This year we have an index in the back and some other easier to use format within the guide, which is available at your local bookstore. It's also available online. You can now put it onto your PC or onto various other electronic devices, and that information is on our website at star-k.org. Anyway, back to the chayil she'ein b'sakana. So you try to use things that are not chametz. Where something is chametz and is necessary, we would say that it's mutter to swallow something which is, even if it's chametz, something that's meant to swallow, like a pill, by a chayil she'ein b'sakana, if something else is not available. So that's again another important kula here, is a swallow pill is mutter by a chayil she'ein b'sakana, and that includes something which is bitter or something which is swallowed as is, and therefore the halacha is that would be mutter. Now another very important kula, leniency by a chayil she'ein b'sakana, is kitniyot. Kitniyot is mutter for a chayla, for a tinaik, and for a zaken. All three of those are mutter, and therefore that's the heter for, let's go each case. We have a zaken. There are various products that are kitniyot based, and a zaken is allowed to take it. Most of the insurers are listed. Those are chametz free. Or there's a product, give you an example, thicket.
They seem to have some technical difficulties. Could you hold on one second?
Sure.
Just mention that.
We're having technical difficulties, so I'm going to wait until I get the green light from the powers that be. Okay, so we were in the middle of I'll pick up, just to reiterate, we were talking about a chayil she'ein b'sakana. A chayil she'ein b'sakana is allowed to take something shalek derech achila. That would include, Rabbi Zalman includes swallowing a tablet even if it's chametz, that would be permissible. Furthermore, kitniyos, and this is where we stopped. Kitniyos is a chayil is allowed to take even derech achila. Again, since kitniyos is a later takana minig Ashkenaz, therefore we're makel by a chayla or by a cotton or by a zaken. A zaken, I was talking about to say thicket. Thicket is if elderly people later sometimes have problems swallowing, they need to mix into it a thicker substance to the protein or whatever they're taking, which gives more traction when they swallow. That's mutter for a zaken. Thicket would be kitniyos based, and l'maisa the halacha is it's not a problem to take because they're a zaken. A cotton, almost every baby formula is going to be kitniyos based, and it's mutter because they're a tinaik. And finally, someone who's a chayla would be allowed to take a kitniyos. Example of that might be something like tums, which has corn based in it. If someone's defined as a chayla, based on their condition, they would be allowed to take tums. That's actually derech achila, that's chewable. But I should note that someone who's not a chayla should not be taking kitniyos derech achila. So if you just have a little bit of heartburn or whatever it is, and you want to take a tums, and it's only a mechush, it's only discomfort, then you should not take it, which leads to an important point in the book, and that is that when Rabbi Best does the research for the Pesach guide, things that are kitniyos just get put in. It's not even mentioned because again a chayla could take kitniyos. Where it's a product that is typically taken by somebody who is just a mechush, that he tries to indicate kitniyos in there, just to tell the user that hey, you only could be taking this if you're a chayla, not if it's just a mechush. Another example of that would be Metamucil. Some of the variations of Metamucil are kitniyos based. Of course, the original Metamucil, that is the coarse one, which is not the best tasting item. It's unflavored and it's coarse. It's not so geshmak. That's not kitniyos. That's mutter for anybody to take. Some of the other flavored ones, or the sugar-free and so on, those are kitniyos based. So again, someone has to ask themselves the question: if they're a chayla and they can't take the coarse one, then it would be mutter. But if someone is not really a chayla, then taking that kitniyos would certainly be a problem. Now, so that's a din by a chayla she'en b'sakana. Someone that has a mechush, which is a discomfort. So there, it's difficult to be mekel because it's just a discomfort, or a bari, someone who is in good health. Also, just to take the regular pills and so on that one is taking, one should be careful if they are if they're not a chayla. Now, if something has kitniyos in it, back to kitniyos. If something has kitniyos in it, there's another heter, and that is it's batal b'roiv. This is an important idea, not only in medicine, but you get a call where someone accidentally used a product. Let's say it was iodized salt, and it didn't have a Pesach hechsher. So non-iodized salt is kosher Pesach. Iodized salt is not kosher Pesach, and non-iodized salt without dextrose is not kosher Pesach. I'm sorry, non-iodized salt without dextrose is kosher Pesach, all brands. But let's say it has dextrose in it, and they actually sprinkled it into their food. So now they call you up, all alarmed, and you look at the list, you see it's not good for Pesach. But since the only potential problem would have been, let's say, by the iodized issue, would have only been a kitniyos problem, then you could be mekel because it's batal b'roiv. Same thing with medication. That kitniyos will sometimes be batal b'roiv, and that usually be batal b'roiv in the product, and therefore that's another thing to keep in mind. Now, let's get to where we have the issues here. Everyone agrees that by chewables and by liquids, that those need to be kosher Pesach, or rather, let's use the term chametz free. That's even the paiskim who are mekel on pills, and we'll get to pills in a moment. But this is why the list is critical, and this is just to debunk the rumor of that. Well, medicines are okay. That statement was certainly made by Gedolei paiskim, and we'll talk about the star case position on that in a moment. But again, even those paiskim are maida that if the product is a liquid product, or that tastes good, or it's a chewable product which has a flavor in it and tastes good, then you're going to have an issue with chametz, and therefore you can either determine on your own that it's chametz free, or it can have a kosher Pesach hechsher. Both are difficult to do that because kosher Pesach is to make that determination is very difficult, but possible if you see all the ingredients are chametz free. That's number one, or it's kosher Pesach with a Kosher Pesach Hechsher on it. Those are very, very rare that a product is Kosher Pesach. So you're really left with the list. And that is, the list will tell you, based on the research which was done by Rabbi Bess, that this product is chametz free. Now, again, sometimes when a product is not on the list, it could still be determined that it's chametz free. And this is some of the work that we end up getting here in the office during the next couple of weeks. And that is that someone calls up with a product, and what I'll do is I'll review the raw materials, I'll review the ingredients, and see that there's nothing in here which is problematic for Pesach, that everything possible in here is going to be chametz free. So if I see a starch, I don't necessarily know it's chametz free. If I see, however, if I see microcrystalline cellulose, not a starch, then I know that that's a chametz free ingredient, and therefore it's not a problem. So sometimes by just looking at the label, we're able to make that determination that the product is indeed chametz free. So other issues, dextrose is very common in chewable products, and that potentially could be chametz. There is a company in Europe called Roquette that makes these products from these types of products. They're the base of these types of products, which includes glucose and starches and dextrose and polydextrose and so on. And therefore, when we see that in a medicine, we just don't know. So this becomes difficult when I look at a label, it's not on the list. We weren't able to determine it, via contact with the company. And I'll see dextrose in it. So I really have no way of knowing. You really have no way of knowing what the status of that is. It's most likely, I would guess, not chametz, that I would say. But, we don't really know, and therefore if it's a chewable product, you really can't take that unless the person is considered b'makom sakana. Even vitamin C, also, the ascorbic acid also comes off of these starches, and again, it's difficult to be able to make that determination of what the source is. Again, most vitamin C, at least in the United States, is coming from corn, but certainly from overseas, it does have the ability to potentially be a chametz-based ingredient, although highly unlikely. Now, let's talk a little bit about liquid medications. Again, liquids, if they have a good taste, if they're chametz, it's also to take, unless someone is b'makom sakana. So once again, a liquid medication will be permissible for use on Pesach, either because it's in the guide, and parenthetically I should note, if something is not in the guide, very often the problem is that that they did not respond. And this is a difficult thing, in that Rabbi Bess sends out to dozens and dozens of companies, and we wait for the response. We wait for the list, and we hope that that list he's able to get answers. He's able to get answers. And usually around Rosh Chodesh Adar, just to show you the background over here, the busiest time here is a couple weeks before Rosh Chodesh Adar, and the week of Rosh Chodesh Adar gives me more meaning to Misha Nichnas Adar Marba B'Simcha. But it's already Nisan, but I actually just saw Rabbi Forsheimer from Lakewood in a Sefer, in a Kuntrus, declared the Shaila whether you say Misha Nichnas Adar Marba B'Simcha into Nisan, because Rashi says that the reason why Misha Nichnas Adar Marba B'Simcha is because you have Adar and Nisan, so that means the Simcha continues into Nisan. Interesting Shaila. So we could at least discuss that. So new meaning to Misha Nichnas Adar Marba B'Simcha here is that the book's almost ready. So there's certainly much excitement, but we're busy waiting for that information. This year we actually waited a little bit longer, which is why the Pesach Guide came out a drop later than normal. But it should be available in most bookstores. Certainly on the East Coast, in the Midwest, I know they should have it by tomorrow or hopefully Thursday at the latest. In those cities, and hopefully the West Coast will have it by week's end. Anyway, back to this. So if a company doesn't respond, we have no way of knowing. And again, if we could look at the formulation and know that it's kosher Pesach by the fact that the ingredients in there are innocuous, then we don't have a problem. Now, back to liquids. Liquids contain very often an ingredient known as sorbitol. Sorbitol also could be chametz based if it's coming from that original Roquette material in Europe, and therefore, once again, that could be a problem. So you want to make sure that those liquid medications are in the book. The Star-K policy on pills and capsules is that ideally one should try to find it on the list and take that version, right? But if it's not available, then you have to then ask yourself, what status are you? If you're a chayil shesh b'sakana or a by sakana, it's mutter, and if someone's a mechash or a bari, then or barid means they're in good health, then then ideally one should forego that and find something else. Which really the nafkamina then between is we're saying that if you're not a chayla and even if it's swallow, you really want to make sure that it's on the list before you take it. Others really say that the swallow pills are straight away not a problem. Elevated differently. Kimchayim, speak to your Meir Hara if you want to know how to paskin for your balabatim. Okay, now the other issue with the lists, Agam, and then I'll look at some of the questions, is the other items that are orally used, mouthwash and toothpaste. Those actually end up in your mouth, and therefore, again, there are other types of products that are listed in the book, which we're not going to get into, cosmetics and so on. But certainly, mouthwash and toothpaste should certainly be on the list in order to use it. There are many such products. Unless someone is a chayla, usually you could recommend to them. Say, "Oh, I love this mouthwash and I got to use it," and so on. Or I have to use this toothpaste. I have a problem. There are plenty of this. I counted 36 toothpaste. A Rav sent me an email about a certain one, and he started darshaning about certain heterim, and I got, I guess, a little frustrated. I just wrote, there's 36 toothpaste over here. If the guy's a chayla, then certainly, and he needs it, and his dentist said he needs this one, so okay, then there's what to talk about. But Lamai said just because the guy needs that stam toothpaste, there's 36 versions on here. So, it's nishkaferlich that he buys. Let him buy a little travel tube of that one. And how many days do you brush your teeth? You have Erev Pesach and you have Motzei Pesach, and this year, this Shabbos smack in the middle. So I think I counted 8 times you have to brush your teeth, even if you do it twice a day. So Lamaisa, you'll manage on I think we said all the Colgates are good. And let's see, Colgate all are good. It's also uses vegetarian glycerin. So Lamaisa for the 8 brushes, things will go fine.
Do you have any questions?
No, you can hand them off to me. That's fine. Okay, so I'd like to go through some of the questions that have been posed that are here. One more thing, by the way, before I take the questions. On a pill, there's no bayir bayir matzeh. And this is important because maybe you'll have something that you need, or something that you might need, or let's say the person's not a chayla, but if it's a pill form, most medications, unless you're dealing with something like benefiber. Benefiber is a years back, I believe, from my memory, was not chametz. And 1 year they switched it to wheat extra, and it's actually befeiros on the label. That's real chametz. That's something that is chametz gomer. You certainly have to sell it. If you don't sell chametz gomer, you would not even want to. You would not even want to sell it. That product, and you would just get rid of it with the chametz. But barring some of those powders that are have the name fiber in it. And again, some fibers are good, but barring those, you don't really have a bayirah bayimatzeh problem that exists. And certain products are surprising. This has nothing to do with medicines, but a Rav in Europe just tipped me off, and this is that Schmerling sugar-free chocolates are chametz gomer. Schmerling chocolate is kosher Pesach. In fact, there are probably people who are of the opinion that it was eaten together with this carbon Pesach. That's how Kosher Pesach, the Shmerli chocolate is, and it is. Indeed, the Shmerli chocolate is Kosher Pesach, but they make a version called sugar-free milk chocolate and I think dark and white. All of those actually, there are chametz ingredients in it. It's I think 25%. It's a large amount. 25%, 20%, whatever the number is. It's certainly not bottle, but it's certainly not bottle, and therefore, again, certain things when you least expect it. And one has to be extra careful. Okay, let me take a few questions here. Is kitniyot batal b'roiv or b'shishim? Kitniyot is batal b'roiv. So as long as you had 51%, if kitniyot is 49% or less, then you don't have a problem. What about tarfus and chewables and liquids? Again, so that's a whole topic in its own right. Chewables and liquids, tarfus could be a problem. In liquids, you have the ability to be mevatel it if it's a suffix iser, which is usually the problem. Glycerin, you could look at our website at an article I wrote a number of years ago, which speaks about the tarfus in medications and how to deal with that in all the different variations of the medicine. If liquid is a problem, what level of dilution can be done per teaspoon before Pesach? Okay, that's a good question. I would guess that one, again, there by Suffolk Isser, there's no Ein Mevatlin, and certainly over here, where it's before Pesach, there's going to be no Ein Mevatlin as well. What would have to dawn on the percentage of the sorbitol going into the product? I don't have those numbers readily available. We have to assume that the amount of sorbitol will certainly be less than 50%, if probably much more than that. I don't know those numbers per se, but let's assume for a moment that it's 50%. So that means every teaspoon, only half the teaspoon is a problem. So you would need 60 times the half a teaspoon of sorbitol. So that would be 30 teaspoons of product. That's 5 fluid ounces. So if you took a teaspoon of dose and you put it into 5 ounces, you would have no problem. So if you had some sort of liquid that had that, then certainly if you had 6 teaspoons, you'd put it in a much bigger amount. If you want to check, we could do some research on that and get the exact number. If it's negeh, feel free, whoever's asking that shaila, to call me. And issues with inhalers. Inhalers are, again, there are very few inhalers that are chametz problem. I would say that if a person has a specific inhaler and it's not on the list, then and that's what they're using and that works for them, then that fits into our list of chronic issues that you don't want to start switching, and therefore it would be mutter. If a person found something on the list which was chametz, may have chametz, try to find out what made it chametz, and indeed if it's chametz, then one would try to make that change at that point. But I think maybe historically there's been maybe 1 or 2 that we know is bebriris chametz, so those should be avoided. If possible. Again, if it's going to change the profile of the person, then it's one should, one could certainly be makel there. But if it's it's chametz, then try to stay away from that one. Our vitamins, medicine, or food. It really depends. In some ways, it's a medicine from the shalei kederech achila aspect because you're actually swallowing it. On the other hand, in certain ways, it's food in that you're consuming it like a bari. If let's say you're just taking some sort of vitamin which you're in good health and you're just keeping your diet up. So in that sense, it's like a food that you don't really it's how important is it? So and we tell that to consumers. And many agencies tell us, it's just a vitamin, it's just supplementing it with a multivitamin. So then, what do you need it for? It's very likely kitniyot in there. You'll manage a few days without it. It actually comes out just 7 days because you can take it Erev Pesach in the morning, you can take it Motzei Pesach at night. So there's 7 days where you're missing it. Prenatal vitamins, we know that nest tabs are kosher and chametz free. So that is what we would recommend for someone to take. If a woman has specific needs, specific problems, there would certainly be heterim. What is the status of lactate on Pesach? So lactate milk, if you buy it before Pesach, is fine. It is chalav stam. Lactate pills, the information that we have is that it is it may contain chametz, and that goes really for all those enzymes that are used for lactose intolerance. And therefore, our policy is it should be avoided. However, if someone is a chayla, now, if it's an adult that's lactose intolerant, we just say, you manage without the lactate, and don't eat milchiks. Sometimes you get a call from people who are not so pashut, because you'll have, let's say, children who have certain needs, or somebody once called me, their child can hardly eat anything, and from the few things they can eat is milchiks if they have lactate. So then certainly that person would fit into the category of a chayla. They'd be allowed to swallow that tablet, shalei kederech achila, without a problem. If you don't really need it, it's our opinion that one should not, one should avoid it due to the potential chametz in it. I don't know of any alternative for those who are lactose intolerant. So again, if you're going with the shittas that say that if you're not a chayla, you should not be swallowing chametz or potentially chametz pills, then there's no real eitzah other than avoiding milchiks. But if the person's a chayla, you can be mekel.
Almond milk. The almond milk.
Oh, another option is again, the almond milk there's a Lieber's almond milk which is kosher Pesach, and there are other almond milks and soy milks and rice milks in our list which are chametz free. So again, if you have a cotton, then there would be more startup to be mekel there. the Walgreens brand for ground flaxseed is a kosher Pesach. Ground flaxseed would be kosher Pesach. We say that flax, in the information that we have in our product guide, is that it's fine. We have it listed under. Actually, we have the index in the back where we can look up and see that where flax is. So. Well, I guess we don't have flax. We have the other. We have hemp and something else. Yeah. So one second. So flax seed. One would check if it's a powder. Yeah. So it's like a spice. So flax, I guess flax seeds that are ground spices, or even spices we say that are ground, really need to come through a kosher Pesach plant. So I think it would be a problem unless it's taken medicinally. Then one could be makel in that case. Pure maple syrup kosher Pesach. I believe we do not say that it's kosher Pesach. It would need a kosher Pesach hechsher on it due to any additives that it might have and how it's processed. Citrus cell, orange powder, I believe was not on a list. I don't have any updated information on that, whether or not that it is it's good or not. I could just double check that. And again, I don't think we have updated. No, I don't have updated information on that. Let's continue with the final questions here, and that's it. I believe that's it for the questions. Rabbi, any more questions? There, we've covered it all. Okay. Thank you very much, and everyone should have a Chag Kosher Sameach. And again, once again, it's been an honor to be able to address such a Kosher Olam. I will now introduce Rabbi Mordechai Frankel, who will be our next speaker at this time.
Thank you, Rabbi Heber, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to share with you some thoughts about kitniyot. I was asked to talk about kitniyot, so I guess I'm here to spill the beans. Okay, the kitniyot, the minhag of not eating kitniyot, is an unusual minhag in the fact that the Gemara says clearly that it's mutter to eat them on Pesach. The Gemara says that if you make matzahs out of rice, so you can't use them at the Seder table for the matzahs of mitzvah, because the matzahs of mitzvah have to be matzahs which had the potential to become chametz. And rice matzahs could never be chametz. They're always good. So therefore you can't use them by the Seder. The implication is that the rest of Pesach, they're fine. So therefore, as far as the din of the Gemara, kitniyot, matzahs made out of rice, are perfectly fine. There was this minhag which developed at the time of the early Rishonim not to eat kitniyot, and there's a debate in the Rishonim: is this a good minhag or not a good minhag? The Torah says that there are those who forbid eating rice and kitniyot because minei chitin misa'avin behen, because when they grow and when they're harvested, there are wheat kernels, grain kernels which can get mixed in. And this is a stringency which we're not knowing, we don't accept. So the Torah, even though he brings it, and even though he brings a reason, he rejects it. In fact, Rabbi Yerucham, who's the Talmud of the Rosh, he calls it a minhag shtus, like it doesn't make any sense. The Gemara says it's mutter. So those Rishonim reject it. On the other hand, many Rishonim accept it. The Beis Yosef and the Sfadim, as we all know, they follow the Rishonim which reject it. The Beis Yosef writes, "Lest the choshed from halalu." That people, but we're not choshesh with it. Zulasi Ashkenazim. That's an Ashkenazi thing. The Ashkenazim are choshesh, but we're not. So the Ashkenazim are choshesh. The Mordechai brings the minhag of not eating kitniyot, and he follows that minhag, and he quotes from his brother-in-law, the Mari Mikavil, who was the author of the Sefer Mitzvahs Cotton, the Smak, that the Smak says that there's an issa to eat kitniyot, the minhag which was miskabel is not to eat kitniyot, and the Smak gives a reason. The reason that the Mordechai quotes from the Smak is that just like you can use grain to make porridge and to make bread, so too if you take kitniyot, you can. There are also things which you could use to make porridge and things like that, and ma'aser kedera and bread, And therefore, the Ami Haaretz nowadays might get confused. Even though in the times of the Gemara, even the Ami Haaretz apparently knew the distinction. But nowadays, there's this possibility that the Ami Haaretz will see rice bread or rice porridge, and they won't know the difference, and then assume that the same thing is true for wheat. And therefore, and that's how the minig developed. That's the reason he said that the minig developed that we don't eat kitniyos. And he says that the general guideline as far as what's included within this is anything which is a mini de mitzgun, anything which is gathered together and piled into piles and harvested is included within this issa. And therefore he says that even mustards, even though mustard is not something which you could make into a porridge or into a bread, even so he says that that's included within the issa. The Taz limits this. The Taz says that that's only because mustard also grows in a pod, and therefore it has the appearance of kitniyos. If something is cannot be used to make bread, and cannot be used to make a maisa kedera, and doesn't even look like a wheat, then the Taz says that would not be included. But generally, lentils, beans, and peas, and things like that, things which grow in a pod, are going to be kitniyos, and that's the reason that the Mordechai brings B'Shem the smak. At the same time, there's another reason the Beis Yosef also quotes in the name of the smak. He quotes from Hagos Maimonius in the name of the smak. An alternative reason, the reason being that again that wheat kernels are mixed in. This is the reason that I mentioned beforehand, the Torah quotes. So we have these two basic reasons in the Rishonim. Both of them are ascribed to the smak, the Sefer Mitzvahs Cotton. These two reasons, and the Taz brings both these reasons. That number one, they are things which could be used to make foodstuffs similar to grain products, and number two, they're things in which grain kernels might be mixed in, and therefore the minhag is not to eat them. The Mishnah Berurah also brings these two reasons in the Bir Halacha. The Bir Halacha also says a third reason. He says that Rabbeinu Manoach, one of the Shodim in his Pirush in the Rambam, Rabbeinu Manoach says that there are some species of wheat, which in good years grow like wheat, and in bad years they grow looking more like kitniyos, and therefore, that was the source of confusion, and that's why they started this minhag to not eat any kitniyos. But be that as it may, we have this minhag, and even though the Sfadim reject it, as we mentioned, the Ashkenazim accepted this minhag, and they accepted it strongly. The Maharil, who's the basic collector of the Minhagi Ashkenazim, Minhagi Maharil, he writes very strong words. He says that a person shouldn't say, I can just ignore this minhag. That's not true. To call the Gos Rabbanon ha'oval of Chayv Misa. That Chazal say that if a person is over b'meizit and doesn't care about his Suri Rabbanon, he's a Peretz Geta and he's Chayv Misa b'dei Shemayim. And so those are very strong words that the Maharil uses. That if a person just ignores this kitniyos and makes light of it, so potentially he could be a Peretz Geta who would be Chayv Misa b'dei Shemayim. So that's the minhag that we have. The Ramah, of course, quotes this. The Ramah brings this minhag. The Ramah, though, says that since kitniyos is only a chumrah, so therefore, unlike real isurin, which are bottled b'shishim, and on Pesach might be on never bottle or asa b'mashahu, kitniyos is not like that. Kitniyos is bottled b'rov. So therefore, l'chatzchila, a person shouldn't use kitniyos, but b'diavad, kitniyos would be bottled b'rov, as long as they're the minority ingredients, then b'diavad it would be fine. It's also clear from the Maharil and the Ramah that the oil which is made out of kitniyos is also included within the gzeira. There's a discussion, they're having a discussion about if you have a lamp which has the oil from kitniyos oil and some of the oil drips from the lamp onto your food, is it a problem? And the Maharil seems to say it is, and the Ramah says, well, it's bottled barov, and I just said that anything that kitniyos can be bottled barov, so he's mekel. But it needs bittul. It's clear that the oil of kitniyos is also a problem. It also can't be used l'chatchila, and b'diavad it would need to be bottled barov. So we're machmir not only on kitniyos but also on oils which are produced from kitniyos. There's a machlokus in the Achronim that logic would tell us that kitniyos cannot be more stringent than wheat itself. Wheat, you can't make bread on Pesach, but you can make matzah. You can use wheat to make things which are kosher on Pesach. So even kitniyos, what's the reason we make this gzeira is because maybe there are wheat kernels mixed in there. Or maybe people will get confused and think that if you can use kitniyos, you can use wheat. Well, even if it is wheat, there are things you're allowed to make out of wheat. So it shouldn't be more stringent than wheat. You should, as long as you follow the guidelines of cooking it within 80 minutes and not letting it rise, then not letting it get wet, then it shouldn't be any more stringent than wheat. You should be able to make kitniyos products as long as they're made kosher Pesach. So the Chai Adam says that, and then the Chai Adam says that would be mutter. And the Shulchan Aruch Hagraz, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, he also says that. So that there are great Achronim who follow that approach. The Ma'asham in Chuvas also seems to be noted that way. But as we know, that's not the minig. The minig is not to use kitniyos at all. We don't use kitniyos. We don't use kitniyos even if they're going to be cooked in a way which would be kosher for wheat itself, grain. It's the grain itself. We don't do this. Even though the Chai Adam, as I said, and the Shulchan Aruch Hagraz are mekel, but we're machmid. The Chasam Sofer seems to be machmid. The Chasam Sofer has a tshuva about this issue, and he says that he's talking about making matzah out of kitniyos, and he says that that b'shas hatzchak he's mekel. So the implication is that his kula there, it's in the Chasam Sofer Chaim Siman Kuf Chaf Aleph, that he's only mekel there b'shas hatzchak. It sounds like that. Other than that, he does not want to be mekel, and he says even if you do it, even b'shas hatzchak, if you're going to make matzahs out of kitniyos, they should be made in a different shape than regular matzah, so that people should be able to distinguish and understand that this is a special thing. But other than that, he seems to be machmeh. His Talmud, the Chasam Sofer's Talmud, the Maram Shik. So he was asked about a sick person who needs to eat, have more variety of foods on Pesach. So he again said the same thing. He quotes this Rabbi, the Chasam Sofer, that if this woman who was asking the question, if she's sick, so it's a shas hatzchak. And b'shas hatzchak, he says he's prepared to be materit for the sick lady, but even so, she should make it her matzahs and kitniyos matzahs in a way which looks different than regular matzahs. And also, he adds something else. He also says that she should use special utensils, not the same utensils that she uses for her regular Pesach food. She should set aside special utensils for the kitniyos. So that seems to be what we follow. This Chasam Sofer, this Maram Shik, that we're only matter for chola, even if it's made, even if the kitniyos would be made in a way which one could do with wheat. Even so, we're only matter for chola. But the Mishnah Berurah in general is mekel for chola, even to do anything with kitniyos. Again, kitniyos is just a minig, even to things that you could not do with wheat. Even if you're going to cook it for more than 18 minutes, if it's a chola, the Mishnah Berurah says that if a chola needs it, then a person in a chola can eat kitniyos. That was not part of the minig to be so machmeh. Even if it's not a chola sheish bo sakana, but if the chola needs it, he can eat kitniyos. He does say, though, the Mishnah Berurah says a couple of things. He says that he prefers that this is based on the Chai Adam, that it's preferable that if you're going to make kitniyos, it's preferable to use beans rather than rice, because rice is like closer to the chamishas minei dogon, and the beans and other kitniyos are further away. So if we're going to do it, we should minimize what we need to, how far we need to go. So preferably, he says, if one needs to eat kitniyos, one should still try and avoid rice and just use regular kitniyos, lentils. And then he also says another chumrah there. He says that even if we're going to do it, we should try to put the grains of kitniyos in boiling water, which is a process known as chalita, which me'ikar adin you're allowed to do to wheat too. We're just knowing not to nowadays. But since me'ikar adin it's something which is meant, which would which would be mutter to do with the wheat itself. So therefore he suggests, again quoting this Chasam Sofer, who's machmeh about these things, that a person should do that. The ma'aser, the first people are sick and they need kitniyos, then they should they should do this as much as possible. Based on this Mishnah Berurah, the minig is also for children, young children, babies who don't have a variety of foods to eat. If they need to eat kitniyos, also they're certainly no worse than the chola, and you can give a baby kitniyos to eat. Rabbi Yoshev writes. Rabbi Yoshev says that the Mishnah Berurah mentions that you put it in boiling water. That's only for the adult, for the chola, but for the child you don't need to do that. And that's the minhag. That the minhag is that if a child needs to just eat if a child needs to eat kitniyos, a baby needs to eat kitniyos. So then we feed them kitniyos. We don't try and put it. We don't. We'll make them food stuff made out of kitniyos, and that's fine if the child needs it, if the baby needs it. But again, as I mentioned, the Maram Shik says that one should use special utensils. So that is the minhag. That is the minhag that Rabbi Yoshev says there. Even though he says that you can do this for a child who needs it, but he says that the minhag is to have kelim yuchadim, to have special utensils which are set aside. In other words, normally it's like a baby bottle if the baby needs formula which has kitniyos, or a baby bowl if the baby needs cereal which has kitniyos, and those things you'll only use them for the baby, and you won't wash them with your other kelim. You'll wash them in the bathroom or something like that, and you'll keep them separate. That's how people. That's the minhag. When it comes to, in general, when it comes to kelim which have been used for kitniyos, an Ashkenazi can't eat kitniyos. Well, how about if you have a kli, you have a utensil which was used for kitniyos, and now the Ashkenazi wants to use it for a non-kitniyos product. So again, if the utensil is a ben yomo, so then we wouldn't do that, because then the food that you're cooking will have tam from the kitniyos, which one should not do lechatchila. If the kli is not a ben yomo, so then the Kaf HaChaim says that once the kli which was used for kitniyos has not been used in 24 hours and is not a ben yomo, the Kaf HaChaim says that then an Ashkenazi can use that kli lechatchila. So that's what he writes. However, as I mentioned beforehand, again, the Maram Shik says that one should be miyachad kelim yuchadim. So I think that the minhag is to be machmeh. Again, this is the question about blias and kelim. What about blias and kelim? As I just said, if the blias are ben yomo, then the chatzchila person should not use it. The kli. If the blias are in a ben yomo, the Kaf HaChaim is matzeh, but that doesn't seem to be the minhag. The minhag is to try and avoid it if possible. There's a question which comes up quite often, which is what happens if you have an Ashkenazi who's going to eat in the house of a Sephardi. So again, even if the Ashkenazi is not going to eat kitniyos, but he's going to be the things which he's going to be eating were cooked in these kelim which Sephardim used for kitniyos. So then there is this problem, the blias in the kelim. So Rabbi Heinemann said, when I asked Rabbi Heinemann once about this, he said that the example that I posed to him was if you have an Ashkenazi person, a man who married a Sephardi girl, so then he's going to go to his in-laws for Pesach, so he's going to be in the Sephardi house there, what should he do? So Rabbi Heinemann says that if the Sephardi cooks for him, then it's fine, because the Sephardi is allowed to cook, and once the Sephardi cooked, then whatever the blias were in the kelim were in there are bottle barov, and the Ramah says that once something's bottle barov, you can eat it. So then the Ashkenazi can eat it. But the Ashkenazi shouldn't cook himself, because when he's cooking himself, he's being the one who's being mevatel barov, and for him it's an issa. And we have a rule that ein mevatel an issa lechatchila. So this is very good. You go to your in-laws and you tell them, I'm just here to eat. I'm not here to cook. I can't help in the cooking, but in the eating I can help. So that's what Rabbi Heinemann felt, that again, if the Ashkenazi is going to the Sephardi his in-law's house, he can. If the Sephardi cooks the food, he can eat it because all the kitniyos are bottle barov, but he shouldn't cook because ein mevatel is lechatchila. Lemaisa could be, I'm not sure, but it seems to me that heter would be in a case like I just mentioned, where this person has family obligations to go. If a person, if a person doesn't have any needs to go, a person Sephardi invites a person can easily decline. So I think that the custom is to try to avoid it. Again, even though the kitniyos are bottle barov, but lechatchila we try not to eat things even alidei bittul on Pesach. So if a person doesn't have to go, then maybe a person should not go. There's a large discussion in the poskim as to what's included within the gzeira of kitniyos. There's a lot of unclarity about. So the Ramah says that anis, which seems to be aniseed, and alianda, which seems to be coriander, he says that they're not kitniyos, even though they would seem to be similar to mustards. Again, that's why but he says they're not kitniyos. The Magen Avraham says they do grow near wheat. Again, even though they grow near wheat, they're not kitniyos because they were not part of the original gzeira, and they're not kitniyos. The Magen Avraham just says that you do have to take out the wheat, and it's very hard to do that. So maybe a person would be better off not eating it because it's hard to get them really clean from all the wheat. But assuming that they are clean, so they would not be kitniyos. There's a Tazda, he discusses the food stuff called kimmel, whether it's kitniyos or not. And the Chok Yaakov there, which is in the page in the Shulchan Aruch, the one on the page, the Chok Yaakov says it's an important yesod. He brings this discussion about this kimmel food, and he says, well, it's not clear. Ein lahachme yosef, but it shouldn't be machme, because the whole thing of kitniyos is just the chumrah ba'alma. For harvard lo loisef alone, we shouldn't add to the chumrah. So this Chok Yaakov is telling us a klal over here that things where there's a clarity whether it's kitniyos or not, a person can be makel, because the whole thing is just a minhag, and it's not a minhag which really has any source in the Gemara. So whatever's kitniyos is kitniyos, and what we're not sure about, you can be makel. So there's a big lesson there, because even though I quoted the Maharil before, who said that a person who's mevatli, who doesn't keep the minhag, is chayav misi b'dei shamayim, that's a person who is just ignoring the minhag. The person who keeps the minhag, he just has a suffix about a certain food. If it's an emistic suffix, so then the Chok Yaakov says that he can be makel. So when we're trying to decide what is kitniyos and what is not, that's something to keep in mind. This has been, as new foodstuffs has come up over the years, so this has been a topic of much discussion. The Chai Adam says that potatoes should be kitniyos because you can make potato starch out of them, and that's the same thing as rice flour. So they should also be kitniyos. Rav Moshe says that minhag, that chumrah of the Chai Adam was never accepted. And he explains why. Rav Moshe says in the Shuvas, this is in Orach Chaim Chelek Gimel Siman Samach Gimel. Rav Moshe says that he says this yesod, which has many ramifications. Rav Moshe says that kitniyos was not a gzeira that Chazal made. It's not Chazal made a gzeira which includes many things. It was just a minhag. It's a minhag that people accepted upon themselves. And when it comes to minhagim, whatever they're noyig, and whatever they're noyig, they're not noyig. And you don't have to, minhagim is not. It's not like a gzeira where you could just anything which fits the criteria is within the gzeira. It's not like that. It's whatever people were noig that becomes asa. Whatever they weren't noig is muta. So therefore, he says that potatoes, even though they fit the criteria, but at the time that the minhag started, potatoes were not a foodstuff. They didn't exist in Europe, and therefore, it's lucky for us that the potatoes were not available. So therefore, they were not part of the minhag, and therefore, Rav Moshe says potatoes are muta. And based on that, he says as well. He says that peanuts are muta. He says that peanuts are not kitniyos for the same reason that they weren't around at the time that the minhag started. So he says that if there isn't any minhag, if there isn't any preset minhag, then peanuts would not be kitniyos. But he says if people started being machmin, people started not eating kitniyos, so that once it becomes an established minhag, then that's also part of the minhag. So whatever people don't eat, you shouldn't eat, and whatever people do eat, you could eat. That's what Moshe's psak. That me'ikra din, he says peanuts are not kitniyos, but if people stop eating them and treat them like that, then it becomes part of the minhag, and then you also can't eat them. The ma'isa, the minhag nowadays seems to be that we are machmir about peanuts. So even though according to Moshe, when peanuts first came on the scene, they didn't have to be machmir, but once they were machmir, then that chumrah now Moshe says that would be binding on us. So the minhag is not to eat peanuts. A ramification. Contemporary ramification of this is quinoa. Quinoa is a foodstuff which comes from the Andes. It certainly was not available at the time that the minhag started. So according to Rav Moshe, it's not part of the minhag. It wasn't. If it wasn't there, it's like potatoes which weren't there, and it wasn't part of the minhag. So therefore, there's no gzeira of kitniyos. It's just whatever the minhag was. Quinoa was not part of the minhag, and therefore they're muta. Unless, again, as Rav Moshe says, unless a minhag develops to asa, then we become asa. But other than that, they're muta. So in recent years, quinoa has become available, and there's no reason to develop a minhag to aser it. Rather, let's develop a minhag that it's muta, which is meikra din it's muta. And the Starkey was one of at the forefront of giving a hechsher to quinoa, and other agencies have joined with us now, and And that becomes the minhag. So then according to Moshe, that's going to be mutar lechatchila, and that's how Rabbi Hanan paskins. There's also a large discussion about different oils, as I mentioned beforehand. The issa of kitniyot applies to oils too. Various oils over the years, there's been discussion about. There was discussion some time ago, a few generations ago, about canola oil. Canola oil is a product which is also originally known as rapeseed oil. I think they changed the name to make it a little bit more user friendly. But there's a discussion about this rapeseed oil. The Masham, as I mentioned beforehand, the Masham says that the Masham goes with that opinion that kitniyot can't be worse than actual wheat itself, and if it doesn't get wet, then it can be worse than wheat itself, that it can become chametz. And in the process of making the oil, it doesn't become wet. So therefore, the masham is ready to be mekel, as long as it's made under those conditions. So then, even if it is kitniyot, it doesn't really bother him. So he's mekel, as I mentioned beforehand. The Chasam Sofer is more machmir when it comes to kitniyot. He says that even things which are mutter to do with wheat cannot be done with kitniyot. So it could well be that he's machmir. The Avnei Nezer is machmir. The Avnei Nezer says it clearly. The Avnei Nezer says that it is kitniyot, and that seems to be the minhag, is that we're machmir to treat it as kitniyot. Again, that would fit in with what the Chasam Sofer says. The Avnei Nezer says befeirish that we're machmir. There's also discussion about cottonseed oil. This is that in Eretz Yisrael they don't use cottonseed oil, and in America they do use cottonseed oil. So it's an interesting thing that even within the minhag of kitniyot, the minhag seems to diverge between different countries. The Avnei Nezer, when he says that we're machmir with canola oil, with rapeseed oil, he says that rapeseed is like mustard because it grows in a pod, and therefore it's similar to that. It's similar to those products which are also part of the gzeira of kitniyot. Well, cotton does not grow in a pod like that. So therefore, even according to the Avnei Nezer, who's machmir by canola oil and rapeseed oil, but cottonseed oil, he should be mekel. And now there's a Trumas Hadeshin which talks about cotton oil, cottonseed oil, and he seems to be machmir, but in that tshuva he says clearly that it's talking about when it already got wet, and there's already concerns that there's chametz there. So there are other issues there which are causing him to be machmir. Pure cottonseed oil, which doesn't have any issues of chametz, would seem to be mutar. So Pre-Pesach Frankel in the Sefer Mikroi Kodesh, he brings from Rabbi Chaim Brisker. Rabbi Chaim said like this: Rabbi Chaim says that cottonseed oil is mutar and is not kitniyot. Shmuel Kamenetsky in the Sefer the Kovetz Halachos that they put out also says it's not kitniyot. There's some discussion about what Rav Moshe held. There's a Sefer Shmaitza de Moshe, which includes within it at the back, it has psakim pia shmua from Rav Moshe. So it says there that Rav Moshe was machmir by cottonseed oil. One of the rabbanim who works for the Star Case of Shalom Tendler. So his father's a grandson of Rav Moshe. So he did some research for us. Is that really true? Is it really true what it says in that sefer that Rav Moshe was machmir by cottonseed oil? He asked Rav Reuven Feinstein. Rav Reuven said that at first Rav Moshe thought that it was a problem, and then Rav Alexander Rosenberg, who was the head of the OU at the time, came to Rav Moshe, and Rav Reuven says that he was there, and he explained to him what the Metzias was in terms of how it grew, and how it was processed, and Rav Moshe was, at the end of the day, Rav Moshe was mekel. And Rav Reuven says that he uses it. My understanding is that Rav Dovid Feinstein also said that it should be mutar. So again, in America we're mekel, and the kashrus agencies in America are all mekel. The Starkei, the Litvish kashrus agencies, the Hasidic kashrus agencies, they're all mekel. In Eretz Yisrael, however, the machmir, again, Rabbi Yoshev has a tshuva, Kibbutz Tshuvas Chelik Gimel Siman Pei Aleph. He seems to be machmir. The Alichas Shlomo brings that Shlomo Zalman was machmir. So it's this is one of those things that when it comes to minhagim, different places have different minhagim, but at least in America, the minhag is to accept it. Maybe one very last question. There's a discussion about if you have kitniyot which are processed in such a way that the end product is completely different from where you started. In diet soda, there's aspartame, which is a sweetener, which is something which is produced after a long process. Originally, it starts off from kitniyot, but the end process is the enzyme is grown on kitniyot. So we have halacha that there's a discussion in Rishonim that if you have musk is something which is produced in the glands of a deer. The Rishonim understand that it starts off as blood and then it's nishtana into this musk, and we paskin that's mutter to eat, mutter to use. So kitniyot is only a minhag. It shouldn't be any worse than that, and therefore logic would say that it should be mutter, and that's why many people will give a hechsher to kitniyot nishtanu. Rabbi Heinemann asked Rabbi Yoshev whether he should give a heter to kitniyot nishtanu. The logic would seem to be that it should be fine. But Rabbi Yoshev said no. Rabbi Yoshev said that he should not give a heter to kitniyot nishtanu. My understanding is that it's part of Chumrah de Pesach. The Chumrah de Pesach is that we don't, again, mask is a machlokus for shonim, even though we do paskin to be matir. There are machmirim, and part of the Chumrah de Pesach is we don't do that. So the Starkei does not give a hechsher to kitniyot nishtanu, and again, that's something which other people are also following our footsteps to be machmir on that. Thank you very much.
Okay, Rabbi, thank you very much, Rabbi Frankel, for that interesting discussion on kitniyot. As we mentioned, we have more information about quinoa. If you go to www.stark-k.org/quinoa, you can see some of our videos and all the information about it. I see there's a question here. One of the Rabbanim is asking about diet soda with aspartame, which is kitniyot nishtana, and the Starkei Shita, Rabbi Heinemann does accept it, even though we don't give a hechsher to kitniyot nishtana, and generally we don't accept it for these sodas that are it's davar omad beruma shel olam. Rabbi Heinemann accepts these sodas even though they have the kitniyot nishtanu. That's a whole discussion. Why would that be different than anything else? But we do. Starkei does accept it. If you will give us just a minute, please bear with us. We're going to set up Rabbi Heinemann's video. It'll take us about 2 minutes. He discussed very important issues about how you write a shtar and how much money does the goy have to give you, and how do you know if he's a goy, and what are the various kinyonim that you have to go through. We'll set that up. And that's, we told Rabbi Heinemann it's a half an hour, so it's exactly 30 minutes. So you will not be delayed more than that. Thank you for staying with us, and just give us 2 minutes, please.